Would you dare to stand in the path of monster storms that can rip houses from their foundations, or step onto lands where the earth itself could explode at any second? Imagine hanging from crumbling cliffs just to harvest a deadly prize, or driving on roads so treacherous they seem to defy gravity and human survival. From dense jungles teeming with venomous creatures and apex predators to treacherous waters infested with the ocean's deadliest sharks, these places hold no mercy. You might walk over shifting ice that can crush you in seconds, or watch a rusted ghost train cutting straight through a post-apocalyptic blood-red lake. So brace yourself and hold on tight, because we are about to journey through the most dangerous corners of our planet, and the last one will leave you breathless. What would you do if you had only 13 minutes to leave everything behind and run to shelter before a tornado arrived? Tornado Alley in the central United States is a region with no official border, but it is often seen as the most brutal weather battlefield on Earth. The mechanism behind this disaster begins with its wide-open landscape, where almost no natural barrier stops cold air from the north from crashing straight into warm, humid air from the south and turning the sky into a giant spinning machine. That violent collision allows this region to produce about 1,000 to 1,200 tornadoes each year, making up a large share of the world's total. When these storms reach their peak, the danger does not only come from the rotating wind column, but also falls from above, as hailstones 4 to 6 inches wide, dropping at more than 100 miles per hour and powerful enough to shatter car windows. The most frightening part is that after only a few short minutes of warning, a family can step out of shelter and find their home gone, while everything around them has been torn apart with almost no trace left. In the North Pacific Ocean, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch has no shore or land, but is a sea zone where plastic waste is gathered by rotating currents and held in place for years. This waste zone covers about 618,000 square miles, but it is hard to see from satellites because most debris hangs just below the surface. It weighs about 88,000 US tons, equal to 500 large passenger jets, and waves only grind plastic into microplastics instead of making it disappear. Just below the blue surface are broken bottles, plastic floats, ropes, and old fishing nets drifting slowly in scattered patches. This garbage patch also acts like a giant raft carrying invasive species attached to bottle caps and plastic pieces, drifting thousands of miles across the ocean before invading distant coastlines. Plastic pieces from the 1970s are still drifting, showing that human waste dropped into the ocean can last longer than a human lifetime. Every step here feels like betting your life on ground that never stays still. Khumbu Icefall is a giant river of ice moving about 3 to 4 feet each day, so cracks can open right along the route. Beneath the thin snow are hidden deep gaps where one bad step can drop a climber more than 148 feet into the ice. Pressure also builds ice towers as tall as a 3-story house, hanging so unstable that they can collapse without a single warning sign. Since there is no fixed path, the route of survival is made from 3 to 4 aluminum ladders tied together, hanging over freezing cracks. That is why people must cross this place between 2 and 5 in the morning, before sunlight softens the ice and turns the whole icefall into a deadly trap. No one looking from the ground could guess that Eagle's Nest Cave is hiding a deep, dark water maze beneath the quiet swamp. The deepest explored point reaches about 310 feet, where the pressure is 10 times stronger than on the surface and can turn every breath into a life or death calculation. The water inside the cave can be crystal clear, but one wrong fin kick can stir up fine mud and drop visibility from about 100 feet to 0 in just 3 seconds. Right at the entrance, the Grim Reaper sign is not just a warning, but a cold summary of the accidents that have happened below. Since the 1980s, at least 12 divers have died here, and many of them were not beginners, but skilled technical diving experts. Once lost in the darkness, the thin yellow guideline becomes the only thing connecting a diver to the exit, and losing it almost means the cave closes forever. Do you believe that beneath this seemingly ordinary land, two giant tectonic plates are still slowly grinding past each other and storing energy for a major earthquake? From above, the San Andreas Fault appears like a long cut across deserts, mountains, and plains, creating unusually straight valleys. Where two rock masses press tightly together, the ground is pushed upward into broken ridges, sitting right beside areas that look strangely flat and calm. This fault is about 800 miles long, reaches at least 10 miles deep into Earth's crust, and separates two giant tectonic plates that keep rubbing against each other. They move past each other only about 2 inches each year, but that means billions of tons of rock are storing energy for large earthquakes. In the early 20th century, an earthquake from this fault system broke the water network, allowing fire to burn 500 city blocks and changing how America prepares for disasters. From a distance, the Mad Honey Cliffs look like a vertical wall covered with giant honeycombs. But once people get closer, it becomes clear why this place is so frightening. The giant Himalayan honeybee can grow to about 1 inch long, fly through thin air from about 4,000 to 13,000 feet, and build nests about 5 feet wide, weighing around 130 pounds. On these cliffs, the Gurung people have hunted honey for more than 2,000 years, while ancient traces show that humans have taken this risk near the Himalayan edge for about 12,000 years. To reach the nests, hunters must hold on to ladders about 160 feet long, woven from bamboo and tree roots so they can press against the rough rock face. When the first wax layer is pierced, about 100,000 bees can rush out at once, while smoke rises below. Wing noise fills the air, and the deep drop waits under the hunter's feet. The danger of the mad honey cliffs does not end when the hunter leaves the rock, because this honey can still cause dizziness and hallucinations if too much is eaten. The sea here is not just rough, but squeezed into a giant corridor where hundreds of millions of cubic yards of water rush through every second under storm winds. Drake Passage is about 620 miles wide, yet it forces the Antarctic circumpolar current through with a flow about 600 times greater than the Amazon River. Because no continent blocks the winds at this latitude, the westerlies can strike the sea at up to about 93 miles per hour. When wind and current collide, the water can rise into wave walls about 66 to 98 feet high, powerful enough to crush even large steel ships. Beneath those wave walls is water about 11,155 feet deep on average, with seafloor cracks dropping beyond 15,748 feet and making the ocean even harder to predict. Since the 16th century, this sea is believed to have swallowed more than 800 ships and over 20,000 sailors, turning every crossing into a real test of survival. Within the same protected area, people can move from the cold of ice and snow down into hot, humid rainforest, because the elevation here changes by nearly 20,000 feet. Madidi National Park covers about 7,320 square miles, but holds more than 1,000 bird species, making life here feel almost impossibly dense. In the forest, a single drop of toxic tree sap in the eye can cause severe burns, while bullet ant venom can bring pain that lasts for 24 hours. Some plants can even shoot their seeds at extreme speed, so even the vegetation is not as harmless as it looks. The low forest canopy is so thick that very little sunlight reaches the ground in some places, while muddy rivers hide flesh-eating fish and black caimans up to about 16 feet long. The worst danger is a venomous snake bite deep inside the forest, where reaching a clinic can take 10 to 14 hours by motorboat, far longer than the venom may give the body. Stabbing straight out of the sea, like the jagged fangs of a sea monster, the Farallon Islands rise about 30 miles off the California coast with sharp and cold granite formations. The white cliffs look like snow, but they are actually layers of seabird guano built up over centuries, creating a smell so strong that sailors could notice the islands from far away. On the narrow rocky ledges, seabirds, seals, and sea lions crowd together, filling the place with cries, growls, and crashing waves. This dense prey source turns the water around the islands into a perfect hunting ground for great white sharks in autumn. The waters around these islands have one of the highest densities of adult great white sharks on Earth, with many reaching up to 20 feet long and weighing more than 5,000 pounds. Located inside the infamous Red Triangle, this area is said to be linked to 38% of recorded great white shark attacks on humans in the United States, making its wild beauty even more frightening. The white sand here does not promise a beach holiday, but marks the life or death edge of an island that has almost locked itself away from the modern world. North Sentinel Island is believed to be home to a tribe that has lived in isolation for up to 60,000 years, keeping a way of life almost impossible for outsiders to reach. After the 2004 earthquake and tsunami, the island was not erased but lifted by about 3 to 7 feet, permanently changing its coastal edge. Fire here is believed to be guarded from trees once struck by lightning, because the people still live close to the Stone Age and do not depend on modern tools. No one knows exactly how many people still live on the island, because estimates can only be made from far away and often sit around 50 to 150 people. Although isolated, they still use iron from stranded ships to make arrowheads, turning a peaceful beach into a place where any stranger can be forced back by weapons. Why can a beautiful beach in California become so hard to find that local people remove road signs just to keep it in silence? Bolinas Beach sits between a rough ocean and a flat salt marsh, creating a natural border that feels both wild and isolated. Behind the sand, sandstone cliffs are eroding day by day, leaving the shoreline at risk of collapse after strong waves or long rains. When the tide rises, the sea almost swallows the whole beach. When it pulls back, the place reveals a rocky reef and small tide pools full of marine life. Cold fog, dark sand, and large pieces of driftwood give the scene a lonely feeling, like a beach deliberately standing outside the modern world. For more than 40 years, local residents have removed road signs and kept a ban on new water meters since 1971, leaving new home construction almost frozen to protect the community's silence. A narrow stream that looks small enough to jump across is hiding a current strong enough to swallow anyone who slips. Before being squeezed into the Strid, the flow is about 30 feet wide, but here it shrinks to only 3 to 7 feet, forcing the whole mass of water downward. Its true depth is still not clearly measured because the current is too violent for divers or sonar equipment to work safely. The banks on both sides have also been hollowed out from below, so a person standing on the rock may actually be above a hidden cave system full of rushing water. According to many local stories, almost no one who falls into the Strid survives because the water pulls victims into underground chambers and can hold them for a long time. More frighteningly, This place still has no tall fence around it, only slippery moss, dark tree cover, and warning signs inside a scene that looks peaceful. It is hard to believe that a town once filled with homes and workers was erased from the map because the air itself became a slow killer. Wittenoom once grew in the dry Australian outback as a mining community, with streets, schools, and houses built around blue asbestos. From the 1930s to the 1960s, thousands of people lived and worked there without knowing the dust they breathed could destroy their lungs years later. Today, abandoned roads, rusting machines, and old ore piles remain like evidence of a disaster that never truly ended. Millions of tons of asbestos waste still cover more than 99,000 acres, and this material can remain dangerous for thousands of years. In 2007, Australia removed the town's official status, as if the only safe future for Wittenoom was to disappear from the map completely. Only about 4 miles long, this road has to climb about 1,440 feet, like forcing drivers to crawl up a building more than 130 stories tall. The limestone wall holding the road rises at about 70 to 90 degrees, so heavy rain can enter the cracks and make large rocks fall onto the road. Along this short mountain pass, 13 hairpin turns force vehicles to swing sharply through tight space, making passengers feel as if they are being pulled close to the cliff edge. Ajai Winding Road was carved in 1935 with simple tools, as more than 2,000 workers spent 7 months opening a wartime transport route. To create those 4 miles of road, more than 200 people died, and at the narrowest bend, engineers had to push the road out into the air so it could loop back over itself. Before the huge suspension bridge above appeared, drivers could only crawl through the pass at about 6 to 9 miles per hour, and some were once trapped for days on the cliff. The boats packed inside this floating market do not travel along a natural river, but through a man-made canal about 20 miles long that was dug in the 19th century. The Canal of Damnoen-Saduak floating market was started in 1866 to connect water trade routes and was completed only 2 years later using hose and shovels. It is about 66 to 98 feet wide and 7 to 10 feet deep, allowing hundreds of boats to move in both directions while helping reduce erosion along the banks. The soil removed from the canal more than 1.5 centuries ago made the surrounding land more fertile, which is why fruit became closely connected to this place. Along the banks, many wooden houses use traditional interlocking joints to handle the movement of water, while motorboats and sharp propellers add risk to daily travel. When hundreds of fruit boats weave past one another, Damnoen-Saduak floating market creates a colorful scene on the water, but a single mistake or collision can quickly become dangerous. Before people even see the mountain houses, they may already feel their hearts pounding because of the thin air, steep climb, and elevation of nearly 4,600 feet. Boscalan village was once tied to the history of headhunting warriors, where tattoos were not just decoration, but a mark of honor after battle. The tattoo ink here is made from soot, scraped from cooking pots, and mixed with spring water, creating a lasting black color because tiny carbon particles stay in the skin. Instead of modern metal needles, tattoo artists use a mountain plant thorn about 0.2 inches sharp to tap the skin thousands of times by hand. The village sits on slopes of about 45 to 60 degrees, so house foundations must grip the rock, while some paths are less than 3 feet wide and force people to pass close to the wall. harsh terrain, ancient tattoo practice, and old customs have made this place a hard-to-reach community that still keeps a rare mountain identity. Right beside a seemingly calm sea, Sakurajima in Japan still breathes out volcanic ash hundreds of times each year, reminding people that the peace here is only a thin surface. This is a violently active volcano, capable of producing 500 to 1,000 small eruptions each year, and on some days, it can release ash several times in a row. In 1914, it erupted about 3 billion US tons of lava, enough to fill a strait about 236 feet deep and 1,312 feet wide, permanently connecting this land to the opposite shore. During powerful eruptions, the black ash column can flash with red or purple lightning because countless ash particles rub against each other and create electricity inside the dust cloud. When underground pressure rises sharply, the ash column can shoot higher than 16,000 feet, piercing through the clouds and forming a giant gray cloud in the sky. Volcanic ash does not only travel through the air, but also falls into daily life, so children must wear helmets to protect themselves from pumice falling from above. On seawater only a few feet deep, the floating village of Panyi exists because more than 100,000 piles reach into the mud, turning homes, schools, and paths into a settlement above water. Behind the village stands a huge limestone cliff, a karst block formed from an ancient seabed and later pushed upward, giving the settlement a fixed point in open water. The depth of only about 5 to 10 feet shaped how people built here, because piles could be driven straight into the mud instead of needing land foundations. But that support system must keep changing, because the mangrove wood first used was hollowed by marine borers, forcing many piles to be replaced with concrete. Inside the floating village of Panyi, wooden paths about 5 feet wide make daily life tight, damp, and never far from the water below. The floating football field, built by children from old boards in 1986, shows how people adapted, but it also reminds viewers that one wrong step here can drop straight into the sea. From a distance, Grenard Island in the United Kingdom looks like a peaceful Scottish grassland. But that green surface once hid one of the most frightening biological experiments of the 20th century. The island is very small, only about 1 mile long and 1 mile wide. Yet it was once contaminated by anthrax spores so badly that it was treated like dead land for half a century. In 1942, the British government secretly used this place to test bombs filled with anthrax bacteria, and the sheep brought there as test animals died within only a few days. The disturbing part is that even with grassy hills, heather, and coastal cliffs, the island still feels almost empty of human life. In 1986, workers had to soak the ground with about 309 US tons of formaldehyde mixed with about 2,205 US tons of seawater to remove the disease from the soil. Only after 40 new sheep survived there in good health was the quarantine lifted, but the island's silence still makes it feel like a toxic memory that never fully disappeared. On the Citarum River in Indonesia, some sections are covered so tightly with trash that the river looks like a toxic dump, slowly flowing through human settlements. For decades, household wastewater and chemicals from textile factories have poured into it, making the water not only dirty, but also loaded with heavy metals and disease. In many parts, layers of plastic bottles, garbage bags, and rotting animal bodies are so thick that they hide the real water underneath. Tests once recorded lead levels 1,000 times higher than the safe drinking water standard, while E. coli bacteria could exceed the limit by 5,000 times because of untreated wastewater. Microplastics and toxins quietly enter fish and farm crops, then return to human bodies through daily meals. The greatest tragedy is that tens of millions of people still use this toxic river for water, irrigation, electricity, and collecting scrap to survive in the sea of waste. In the thick moss-green water, danger does not come from something you see far away, but from a shadow suddenly rising beneath the boat. The waters of Gansbai once drew many great white sharks because more than 60,000 brown fur seals lived offshore. The steep sea floor helps sharks accelerate to about 25 miles per hour, enough for a body weighing around 2 tons to launch nearly 10 feet out of the water while hunting. Water around 50 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit and thick plankton often cut visibility to under 10 feet, turning the green water into perfect cover. Even expedition boats need reinforced hulls and powerful engines because rough waves, sudden storms, and shark impacts can all happen here. During cage diving, visitors do not see the predator from far away. In the cloudy water, a giant mouth of teeth can appear only a few handspans from the face. Appearing like a haunting mirror, Bloody Lake in Russia is a surreal natural wonder that can dye its own surface red when the dry summer heat arrives and the salt level becomes extreme. This red color does not come from pollution, but from a survival reaction of algae and tiny brine shrimp as they create beta-carotene to protect themselves from ultraviolet light. Because the lake is very shallow, with many areas only ankle-deep or knee-deep, the red color can easily cover the whole surface like a giant layer of blood. The heavy salt concentration makes the water feel slick and dense, allowing the body to float with almost no effort. The strangest scene appears when an old salt harvesting train runs through the Red Lake, cutting through the salt below and looking as if it is crossing blood-colored water. This train only operates for a short time, from August to October, when the salt has crystallized thick enough for harvesting, making the place even rarer and more haunting. Denali Star, Alaska. Few know that the clear polar air creates a visual illusion, making the giant mountain taller than Everest from base to summit seem just a few miles from the train window. The train glides past brilliant pink-purple flower carpets, signaling snow is coming, taking tourists from dense conifer forests to the barren tundra where only moss survives. The most heart-stopping feeling is when the train crosses a steel bridge over a canyon 295 feet deep, where passengers looking down see only nothingness, like floating. However, this journey is a game of luck, as only 30% of visitors have the chance to see the proud peak completely without clouds covering it. Kuranda Scenic Railway, Australia. Few know that this train runs through Earth's living museum, a tropical rainforest 130 million years old, older than the legendary Amazon. To conquer the height of 1,076 feet on sinking volcanic soil, 1,500 men had to use bare hands and explosives to slice through the 90-degree vertical mountainside. In the rainy season, giant waterfalls crash down right next to the tracks, covering the cars in white mist, making tourists feel like they are passing through the eye of a storm. The groaning metal and creaking wood as the train crosses bridges are a chilling reminder of human fragility before the deep abyss below. In the past, this railway transformed into a giant ambulance, carrying thousands of World War II wounded soldiers to high mountains to avoid tropical diseases. This journey is not just tourism, but an exploration into the planet's memory, where wild nature reigned long before humans appeared. Bernina Express, Switzerland. Few believe that this train can challenge gravity to climb to the top of the Alps using only wheel adhesion without any supporting cogwheel system. Thanks to the giant dome glass design extending from floor to ceiling, all visual barriers are removed, making tourists feel like they are floating amidst the majestic mountains. At the pass summit, nature treats the eyes with two lakes lying side by side, one milky white from melting ice, the other deep black from underground springs, creating a fascinating contrast. The journey is a time miracle, taking viewers from the region of eternal ice down to the warm Mediterranean climate in just 4 hours. The thrill comes from the horseshoe-shaped winding tracks, where the train curls up so that passengers in the first car can see the tail behind. This is one of the rare 3 railways in the world recognized by UNESCO as a heritage site, proving that humans can pass through nature without destroying it.